Folks, we're back. This is Steve Sanson, Stephanie Phillips with another episode of Veterans in Politics. Today we have Sharron Angle, candidate for Nevada's Secretary of State. We're going to hear a lot about Miss Angle in this show. But before we get to her, Miss Phillips.
Thanks for joining us, everybody, and thank you to our sponsors. We have Simplify Heating and Cooling. If you need your system checked, their website is callsimplify.com. Callsimplify.com. We also have Henderson's mayor, Michelle Romero. She's running for re-election. Her website is votemichelleromero.com. votemichelleromero.com. Jump on her website and get in touch with her. Also, we have Cody K. Whipple. He is running for Congressional District 4. His website is codykforcongress.com, and that's the number 4, codykforcongress.com. Jump on his website and check out his platform. Also, don't forget to grab your copy of Steve's book, How to Navigate Nevada's Family Court System. If you don't have an attorney and you can't afford one, this is a self-help book. It will help you navigate that court system. You can grab a copy on Amazon. It is $14.99. Also, we have a merch store. It's vipimerch.com. vipimerch.com. There's all kinds of fun stuff on there for you to check out. And don't forget to get your tickets to our Valentine's Ball. It is February 7th of 2026. And we have early bird tickets on sale. You can jump on our Facebook pages and check out the link. Or the Valentine's Ball page on Facebook and get the link and get your tickets. We're excited for that. I have a very quick rant. This was incredible to me. Have we not learned anything in the last couple of weeks since the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk? Tennessee State University, there was this, he goes by Fearless Debates on Instagram, that handle. And sorry, I don't know his name, but he goes around college campuses and he debates as well. So he set up a table at Tennessee State University. Within 10 to 15 minutes, there were students around yelling, screaming, rioting, taking their signs. And this kid simply wanted to have a dialogue about DEI. So instead of being able to debate and discuss different opinions, these kids were very mean to them. They, in fact, had to have police around them. They escorted them off campus. They had to leave right away. These kids threw stuff on their car, drinks on their car, were threatening. And it just, to me, if you don't want to talk about the subject and you see somebody that's debating and you don't agree with them and you can't handle it emotionally, walk away. You don't have to stand there. You don't have to engage. You don't have to be mean and you don't have to be violent. So I think we need to learn some lessons here. And these kids who are being violent, stop it. Because we have already seen what has happened to Charlie Kirk, and it is awful. Tennessee State University is where this happened. So jump on the Instagram page, Fearless Debates, and you will see what happened out there today.
Maybe you should have them debate you. Let's see how that goes.
That probably wouldn't go well.
What you call me? Well, thank you for that, Miss Phillips.
You're welcome.
Miss Angle.
Yes.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate being able to talk to your audience this evening.
Absolutely.
It's
great to
a
see
wonderful
you.
opportunity. And I have to say I've missed it. Yeah, well, I'm from the north. I live in Reno, and so I don't get to really engage your audience very often. So
Well, let
I'm
them
really
hear your
excited.
bio. Tell us your bio.
Oh, my bio quickly. Well, I came to Nevada when I was 3 years old. Grew up. I was born in Oregon,
What part of Oregon?
Klamath Falls, and only because.
Oh my goodness. I grew up in Medford.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was only in Klamath Falls long enough to be born. We were actually from a small town in Northern California, Tule Lake, where my father was a potato farmer, spud farmer. He got called up for the Korean conflict when I was 2. And we moved to Hawaii because he had seen
How
action.
dare you?
Well, he'd seen action, was wounded in the Pacific, and so they said, because you've done your service, we'll put you stateside Actually, Hawaii wasn't a state yet, but we were a protectorate and had a base there to protect the mainland. And so I spent 1.5 years there in Hawaii while he was serving. And when he was discharged, we moved to Reno, Nevada, where my mother and dad bought a motel. And we worked in that motel the whole time I was growing up. I went to Reno schools and graduated from Worcester High School, go Colts. Also graduated from the University of Nevada, Reno, go Wolfpack.
Mm-hmm.
I know that may not be very popular here in the South, but at the time it was a fun thing to do. I had decided I wanted to be an artist, go to Paris, London, and Los Angeles, places like that, but I got married instead. Mm-hmm. And my husband worked with natural resources, so out to the rurals we went, and I spent 3 years in Ely, 2 years in a little town, Vail, Oregon, 11 years in Winnemucca, mm-hmm. and 8 years in Tonopah. Where
so you know the state. Huh?
Wow.
I do. I've lived, those 25 years out in the rural communities. And then I served. That's where I actually got my start in politics. I served on a school board, the Nye County School Board. Mm-hmm. And when we moved back into Reno, then I ran for the state assembly. And I served 8 years in the Nevada State Assembly. In 2010, I ran against Harry Reid, probably the most well-funded campaign in history at the time. Harry Reid was...
beat you, because I was there, remember?
Well, thank you for that. That's a lead into my book.
Do you remember?
Right.
Do you remember?
Angle. I do.
Do you remember this Angle?
I do remember.
Because of you, we got Harry Reid Airport.
No, not because of me.
You was gonna beat him up. You had him. It was yours. What happened? It was yours.
I'm gonna point to page 122.
All right, 122. Let's go.
Because that was the most.
We were very disappointed.
I know that was the most asked question. Was did Harry Reid steal the election? Mm-hmm. If you remember, we were winning. When I landed at the airport here at 7:00, when the polls closed, I was met by my team, and they said, "You've lost the election. How do you lose an election 10 minutes after the polls close?" Mm-hmm. And we began to sift through the ashes then to figure that one out. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we did find out, which was very disconcerting, from an exit poller who had been polling all of the Las Vegas races from the U.S. Senate race down to a Justice of the Peace race. Every one of those races flipped at 10 after 7 by 9.3%. That's a statistic.
All of them?
All of them. That's a statistic impossibility.
Of course it is.
And so from that place, I began to be very interested in fair and honest elections, which I think your audience is most interested in. Mm-hmm. And the reason I believe that is because over 70% of the state across party lines voted for voter ID. They want something that says to them, my vote counts. Mm-hmm. And a secure and honest election depends on, do you know that person that's voting? Is that person a legal citizen of our country? That's a requirement to vote. Mm-hmm. Are they living in a residence and voting from that residence? Mm-hmm. Not some commercial address,
right?
But
or a vacant lot,
right where they live. Those are the kinds of things that make us feel secure and give us confidence that our elections are fair and honest. Because since that time in 2010, and actually a little before, I had been following this issue, and it just became something that I wanted to know the answer to these questions. And that's really the reason I'm running for Secretary of State. I've been on the outside. I've had court cases to say, please, let's clean up the voter rolls. Simply, let's get people that are dead, that have moved away, or that never existed. Remember back in 2009, we won a case against Acorn for registering all the Disney characters and the Dallas Cowboys here in Nevada.
My gosh.
So if we won that case, did we clean everybody off the rolls that Acorn brought to the party? I don't think so. They might have gotten those guys, but did they get the rest of them? So it's always been a question in our minds, what is there? And so we just want clean rolls. We want to know that you're a citizen of the United States.
Yeah.
We want to know that you have a residence in Nevada. You're not voting from California in Nevada. Things like that. It's pretty simple. And we were asking the courts to give us that confidence. And as you know, the courts haven't been very accommodating when it comes to those things. They have given us they've given us a really hard time, I feel, about our evidence. And so I knew that coming at it from the outside wasn't going to fix the problem. I want to have somebody on the inside now that really understands elections and what makes a fair and honest election. And that, again, is why I'm running for Secretary of State. So that's my history. And
so
that's why I'm
back
running.
then when all those races, you said they were 9.3% at 10 after 7, all those races. So at that time, wasn't it Sagofsky that was the Secretary of State?
No, it was Ross Miller.
Okay, so when you guys took your case to Ross Miller at the time, or whoever else, what did he do with that information? How can you, as a Secretary of State, how could you, for 1 second, say to the Nevada voters, this is completely legit? How can you do that?
Well, how can you deny someone standing in court? Which is really how the system works, is that the Secretary of State can't actually hear the case or bring the case.
Of course.
He takes it to the Attorney General. That's why the Attorney General's race is equally important.
Did he do that?
He did. They told us we had no standing. I had a great lawyer, too. Some people say, oh, well, you didn't have the right lawyer.
Who's your lawyer?
Cleta Mitchell. You know her. She's a nationally known person of importance when it comes to the legal community and the Constitution.
Who was the AG at the time? Wasn't that was before Laxalt, right? Who was that back then?
Yeah.
Wasn't it
Now
Ross
you've
Miller?
got me. No, Ross Miller was the
He
Secretary
was
of
Secretary of
State.
State.
Channel, wasn't it Channels?
I don't know. We'll have to look that up. I don't want to make a statement that I can't back up. But
So Ross takes it to the AG, and then what did the AG do with that information?
No standing. Said,
Oh, so they
we're
just
not going
dropped
to hear it. Yep,
They didn't
no.
even they didn't think for 1 second that all of those races, magically the same percentage, was not odd or off at all.
Honestly, Stephanie, we had more than that. We had more than just the 9.3%. We had proven cases of coercion. There was all kinds of things that happened in that race, and they just said, no case here.
What would you do if you had that same scenario, somebody brought that to you and you saw those numbers? What would you do as Secretary of State?
Of course, you have to investigate. Whenever someone brings numbers, and even if it's just one, that one illegitimate vote cancels out a legitimate vote, makes this vote null and void.
The
So
Attorney General.
everyone you need to investigate.
Right. Who was it?
Who was
I
it?
was just excited.
Who was it?
It was Mastos.
Oh my gosh! No
Cortez
wonder.
Mastos. Okay. Okay.
Lord.
So now we know the end of the
Now
story,
we know
right?
What happened in 2010, right?
The end
Thank
of the
you,
story.
Cortez Masto, for just looking the other way. My goodness. And then we come to 2020 and saw what a disaster that election
And by
was.
2020, everybody was seeing what we had seen here in Nevada in 2010. We were actually a prototype, I feel, in 2010 because Harry Reid needed to win that election. And he was going to do it no matter what it took to win. he was going to do that. And so we watched him roll out the dirty campaign. Before then, we had never seen the personal attack.
Right.
We had always been very civil with one another, debating the issues and talking to one another about what's truly important in government. And he could not argue. He could not debate the issues. If you go on YouTube, those debates between Harry and I are still there. They're quite
Interesting.
I was going to say comical, but they are very interesting. And because of that, he knew he couldn't debate me on the issues. So then it was, she's a crazy lady. And all of a sudden we had the first AI. I have pictures of me out there with tinfoil hats on with snakes coming out of my mouth. Such ugly stuff. I know. I looked at it and I thought, I cannot remember posing for any of those.
Yeah.
But, that was the campaign out there against me, was these photoshopped pictures at that time, and also the character assassination. They even made up a campaign which was kind of fun. I was up in Reno, and we had a press release kind of thing with a company, and we said, the press is so hot to talk to Sharron that if we don't close ranks with these guys with the hard hats, close ranks, and let her kind of slip out, you will never get any press coverage. All it will be is they won't talk to you, and they'll just talk to her. So we had it all figured out that I would just quietly slip out the back. We had it yellow taped about 3 feet high, and the press started talking to me, and I was answering questions. And then at the end, I said, thank you very much. And the master of ceremonies for that company then came forward and began to talk to them about their company. And as I slipped through, I'm telling you, there were 10 guys with hard hats on, big old guys. I slipped behind them, and the press jumped over that tape. In fact, one of the reporters was pregnant. I mean, really pregnant, like maybe 8.5 months. She jumped over that tape, and they started chasing me out the back. I got in my car, and they were up on the hood, focusing in on the windshield. We were afraid to drive away because, they were just on top of that car.
Where was your security?
We didn't think we needed it. Who does that? We didn't expect paparazzi, honestly.
Why did you call me? I thought you had me on speed dial.
Yeah, not then, but you couldn't have made it that quickly. It happened again in Washington, D.C. with their press. In fact, I was coming down a staircase, and they were chasing after me to, who knows what they thought they were going to get, because we just given an interview. And here comes the camera first across the floor, and then this guy on his belly across the floor in front of me. I actually stepped over his legs and got into the elevator. There we did have security. They couldn't follow us down. But it started to happen, this paparazzi press frenzy. And the story was, Angle runs from the press. I wasn't running. They were running. I was giving interviews, but they never showed the interview. All they saw, if they could get the interview and then follow me out and get my back, then that was Angle runs from the press again. And they never caught me running. I was never running. Yeah. I was just walking away from the event. The event was over. I'm done. Yeah. Here we go. Nope, I'm running. It was just the craziest thing. So we finally did call out security, and then they were able to kind of curtail that when I needed to go to another event. We had them on private property. I had a meet and greet up here in Summerlin, I believe, and they came onto that property, and they were looking in the windows of the house with their cameras trying to catch
Oh,
a
my
picture
goodness.
of me.
Wow.
We did call the police and ask them to please move them off the property.
Yeah.
You know,
Trespassing.
yeah, because they
crazy.
weren't invited to the event. It was
Wow.
a private event, and they were not invited to come and look in the windows. I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of voyeurism, isn't
Yeah,
it?
no,
I
it's
don't
weird.
know. Anyway, it was very weird. That campaign just kind of set a tone that we had never had before in any kind of an election.
Because he was going to go bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
He was afraid. He was afraid, but more importantly, his handlers were afraid. And we have to understand this about the Democrat Party. They do not send candidates with a message as far as a message that's from their heart. They send candidates with an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And they just continue to repeat that agenda over and over again. And Harry Reid had an agenda that he wanted to repeat. Anytime we could get him off the script, then you could see the real Harry Reid, and that was frightening to them. Mm-hmm.
So, Ms. Angle, you're a grandmother.
I am.
How do you see generational responsibilities or legacies in your role, especially with decisions that affect families and children?
As the Secretary of State, or just as a person?
Just as a person.
Because
Wants to be Secretary of
yeah,
State.
right. Well, you know, my lane over here as Secretary of State has to do with business. I have a business lane there, and I have an elections lane. And that's, of course, where I'm going to be campaigning. So this question about children, first of all, I want to tell you that the reason that I got into politics in the first place was for my child.
How could you connect with that generation is probably basically my question that I really want to ask.
Well, I know that their connection is social media. That's how they want. That's how they get their information. But more importantly, I think they're very tired of being treated improperly. They want truth. They don't want cancellation. They don't want censure. They want truth. And I think that we have seen an exponential response to that truth with what happened with the assassination of and martyrdom of Charlie Kirk. That's the generation that has said, enough is enough. Enough is enough. And we're tired of this. They've been tired for quite a while. We've seen it on college campuses where they have started to respond. And so I think that that's what they want. They want the truth. And that's what I want too. I want fair and honest elections with integrity. I want to know the truth. I know they want to know the truth. And so if we get someone in that office who will look to find out what truthfully is going on. Maybe there's nothing. Maybe when I get in there, we'll find out that nothing has gone on. And we'll investigate each one of these cases that is brought in. We'll find out that it's really what it's supposed to be. Maybe that's what we'll find. Maybe we'll find something different. And if we do, then we can take care of that problem. And it can be very transparent. Have anybody that wants to come in and watch the process do that. I think that goes a long way to giving confidence to a generation that has no confidence, not in their media, not in their social networking, not in their education. I mean, we've let them down in so many ways, just as a culture. And I think it's time, if we want to pass the baton on, for us to at least set up a system that works and that they can say, yes, we can step into this place. And that's what I want to do. That's why I want to run for this office.
So back in 2020, Sagosky was in office, and she really didn't do anything when these things were brought to her about these cases. In fact, I was at a luncheon sitting, it was at Ahern, I forget which one it was, but I was sitting one table away so I could hear what she was saying, and that was the discussion, because this was years ago. But it was, I think, maybe 6 cases or something. She found there was no widespread voter fraud, nothing. So when I heard that, and clearly we see the charts where in the middle of the night it just spikes up like that, it's mathematically impossible for that to happen. And anybody with any common sense knows that, especially a Secretary of State. So I was very disappointed in her and her not doing anything. So if you were sitting in that seat and you saw what happened, what would be your response to the voters?
Well, first of all, widespread is a very relative term. For me, one is too much. How much of this are we going to tolerate? One is too much. It needs an investigation. When they say no widespread, well, if we tolerate 4 cases of theft in the same neighborhood, is that widespread or is that insignificant? It's only insignificant if you don't live in that neighborhood. Well, we live in this neighborhood. And so I would just say that I don't think that that's a proper way to handle things by saying it's insignificant. It's not insignificant if it's your vote that gets canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting or has taken a stand with their vote that actually neutralizes whatever you did. And that's why we feel like our vote doesn't count. So I would say, first of all, every case that comes should be taken seriously and investigated. And anybody who wants to watch the way that the investigation is handled should be allowed to do that. You want to have your eyes on that process? Absolutely. Come on, let's do that together. And let's talk about things. I have a website, votesharronangle.com. And on that website, I have been writing just little newsletters. You can get those if you go there and sign up. They're free, votesharronangle.com. And I have begun to address how this law works that we're under and how we can enforce the law, but also use the law to do what we need to do, which is clean up these voter rolls, make sure that people who are not legitimate voters do not vote. And
has the current Secretary of State been cleaning up the voter rolls? What have you heard about that? Has he done anything?
Well, he says he is.
Oh, so how many have come off the rolls? Do you know?
He gave us a number last week, I believe. And I'm not exact in this, but it was over 150,000 that he had cleaned off the rolls. And that 112,000 of those came off of the Clark County rolls. But when you consider that we have millions now voters, I'm saying maybe that's an insignificant, or what was the word you used? I can't remember. But it means insignificant. It's just, it's why are we worried about that number when this number is so great? Well, we should be saying, that's wonderful that you were able to get that many off.
That's a lot of people.
But we need to make sure that that's everybody. That, we want to make sure that we're still working on this because we believe that it's probably more than that, than just what was purged during this time. And were they really purged? When you understand the law, this is the Help America Vote Act. It's also the National Voter Registration Act that governs this. We know that it takes some time to really get them off the rolls. You have a process that you need to go through. You have to first go through and send them a postcard. If they do not respond, then you begin the activity, which is to take them from the active voter roll to the inactive voter roll. Once they're on inactive, they cannot be sent a mail-in ballot. However, in one of our elections, they sent all the inactive voters mail-in ballots, and that's what we had on the streets and in trash cans and overflowing in mailboxes. So they go to this inactive file. Now they remain inactive for 2 general elections. and that is 4 years. So here we are. At any time, those can be reactivated. So we have some hoops that we have to jump through, but we have to make sure that when they go to that inactive list, they stay inactive until they have proven that they are an active voter in this state. With this automatic voter registration that we now have, that makes that an even more difficult task to figure out, and it really puts a load on all the county clerks and registrars to have to follow up. Did you really want to register to vote, or were you just automatically registered? And there's lots of people that don't want to be registered to vote. If you're a legal alien here, a resident alien, you do not want to be registered to vote. Those are grounds. That's a felony, and that's a grounds for deportation.
There's no checks and balance in that
So you
system
have
either.
to, if somebody automatically registers you and you're in that category, you go, wait a second, I don't want to be registered. There's a reason I didn't do that. So the clerk or the registrar has to call, find out if that has happened to you. Then we've also seen that they are automatically put in the nonpartisan category. So then the clerk checks on that too. Did you want to register in a party, or are you truly a nonpartisan? So you can see now we're getting into a lot of work because of something that really didn't need to be put in place.
Yeah.
People should have that option. It shouldn't be automatic.
That needs to be repealed, in my opinion.
So, Ms.
It's not
Angle,
a good law.
You're considered a public figure, correct?
I am.
And you've been in politics for a lot of years.
Yes, I have.
You was a legislator.
Uh-huh.
You almost became a U.S. Senator.
Yes.
Almost. See, this is why almost is not good. Almost.
I know.
Yeah,
She
I
did
was trying
very,
to
very
explain
well.
almost to her the other day. You know, the 3 eagles on the pay line, that's what you want. You don't want to almost.
Right.
We want 3.
We were close.
You were close.
But no cigar. So, and you have faced criticism
I have.
throughout the years. I mean, if you weren't doing what you're doing, if you're just in a corner, then you wouldn't face no criticism.
That's right. If nobody cares,
Yeah, to get out and start swinging,
what kind of
right?
a job are you doing? Right.
So, how do you deal with the criticism in your professional career? How do you handle that?
It depends on the criticism. Some criticism you just ignore. I mean, some of it doesn't matter really. I mean, you deal with it in your personal life. Somebody, road rage. What do you do with that? No, I'm sorry you're having a bad day. You don't get raging. You don't rage back. Just
Why
move
can't
on.
you rage back? What's going on?
Well,
A rage for a rage.
well, we're a civil society.
No
that's
duels
my-
here.
We think, but
We
some
think
people
Why
are
a man
not.
a duel,
And
like
then
back in
something
18
like 2 weeks ago
Yeah,
happens, and
it's
we
not
realize
civil,
it's not
right.
as civil as we thought.
Right.
But that's the real reason why you don't rage back, is because you don't want to escalate what's going on. And especially if the criticism is not something that needs to be addressed, you just ignore it, really. Some criticism can be, very positive criticism. So then you take that as something very constructive to you, and you act on it. If you feel like someone has a legitimate argument and you should be doing a better job, you should listen. None of us are above learning. We can't get too old to learn or too arrogant to listen to someone who's trying to give us advice that's helpful. So you can respond very positively to that. Some of the things, like the tinfoil hats and, that I talked to you about, the crazy lady stuff, I think that kind of criticism, you just have to speak to it. If you're listening to me and we're talking, do you think I'm crazy? If you don't think I'm crazy, then you know. And I would like you to put that up on Facebook. Go to my page on Facebook, Sharron Angle, and like, share, comment, tell the others. I listened to this lady. Go to Steve Sanson's broadcasts and listen to her. I don't think she's crazy. I think I like what she's saying. And that way, that kind of criticism just kind of goes away on its own, because the more people that talk about me and say she's not crazy, in fact, I like what she says and I think she'll do a good job, that criticism goes away. So I think there's just many ways to handle it. Just kind of depends on what you're getting.
Could you explain the job description of the Secretary of State and what is driving you to become the Secretary of State and what you would handle in your first 90 days?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is a huge
what would
question.
you do first?
What you gonna do first?
That is
One,
What's the
two,
job
three.
description? What you gonna do first?
That's a huge question.
What are you running?
First you said, what motivates me? I'm a Christian. And I always pray about what I'm going to, what God wants me to do. What is it? What is your plan and your purpose, Lord, for me? And he said to me, do it again. So I feel like that was very clear. I'm here to do this one more time because of him. I also know that I have a passion of my own that I explained to you about elections. I've been on the opposite side of this kind of stuff. I've also fought for it. And I know that we need someone who understands elections, has experienced all of this, and isn't just shuffling it off as insignificant, but taking a real clear look at it. And that's one of the reasons I'm running. The second reason that I'm running, which I think is the most important reason, is that over 70% of our voters in Nevada across party lines said they want voter ID. The person that's in this office says it's a roadblock. I believe he will be the roadblock. He is an attorney. He understands lawfare. And I believe that he can manipulate this into the courts to stall it, to dilute it with policy and procedure. We've watched him in the last legislative session bring 12 bills that were vetoed by the governor that were to seize centralized power into his office. Why would he want to centralize this and get it away from 15 clerks who are directly accountable to voters? Why would he want to do that? So that's another reason I want to be the Secretary of State, is because I kind of see this heading our direction, and we may get it in the Constitution, but it may not be effective because of the person that is instructed to implement it. I want to be that person. The job itself has two places. We have a business place on one side where we do things like notaries, marriage licenses, marriage officiants, people, things like that. We also do your state business licenses there and taxation. This side of the business, most people don't deal directly with it, but if they do, they know the website needs a fix. It's a difficult website to maneuver in.
You said marriage license. What do you mean by marriage license?
Well, your county clerk, your county clerk does marriage licenses, and we have a repository at the state for those, So,
Thanks for clearing that.
Yeah, so a lot of what the Secretary of State does on that side is really serves as a support for the clerks and what they do. The clerks actually do the boots on the ground yeoman's job. They're wonderful. I just have to say that. They're wonderful. And they are directly accountable to the people. So let them do their job. The one thing that we do on that business side with the incorporations here in the state, not so long ago, we were the Delaware of the West, which means that people wanted to incorporate their business here in Nevada because it was not as expensive as other states and had fewer regulations. It was just a good place to have your corporate business. Not so much anymore. Wyoming has really become very competitive with us. And I think that needs to take a turnaround. So on that side, that's what the Secretary of State does. Like I said, the website could use some help. I know that Aguilar is promising silver flume will be better. Well, so he acknowledges that there's issues there. One of the issues I see is you can't get to a real person. AI is good if you just want to know what my address and website are. But if you have a real issue, you need to talk to somebody who can direct you in the right way. If you want to pay with a check rather than online, you should be able to do that, right? Or even cash. They'll still work in our country. So that part, that personal service to the public, we are that, a public service oriented office. We need to make sure that we're very service oriented and public friendly. On the other side, the election side, which is where most people are engaged. And when I say that, I think that that's 70% plus that once voter ID says we're engaged in elections, we want to make sure that we have a vote that counts. And so on that side, then I need to be proactive in implementing that law that the people passed, which is not a legislative thing. It's just how does your office assist in making sure that that law is implemented and enforced. Also, there are other policies and procedures on that side that I can help the clerks with when we're cleaning up rolls, when we're making sure that we have only citizens voting from their residence. You know, those are just things that I can help with the guys that have the boots on the ground that really have to do that. There are some legislative things that I think we could follow up on. I'm not sure that I need to, get into that too much until 2027. I get six bills, and I can, of course, talk to legislators about carrying more. But I'm really wanting to talk to the county clerks. They're the boots on the ground. They should be the ones saying to me, we could really use a law of that, and let them fill in that blank. And they're the ones that are listening to their constituency. Ultimately, they're the ones that have the responsibility and the authority over elections and, of course, over this business side of it, too. So I think I need to be listening to them. And when I am elected, I need to sit down with them and say, we've got some bills. We need to make the most of the laws that we pass so that they actually help you do your job, which is really what the Secretary of State is all about. It was never supposed to be about politics. It was always supposed to be about patriotism, about us as a nation doing the right thing with our vote and being very constitutionally minded about this being our first and most important right, is the right to vote. So that's who the Secretary of State should be, not a political person, not a weaponized office, but a service-oriented office that really does do what the people asked him to do.
So, Ms. Angle, you mentioned business side. Do you think, you being the Secretary of State, would you be willing to push legislation to change the Constitution of Nevada to allow the lottery to be in this state to help with the budget?
I talked about the county clerks. They're my number one priority. I think that if they thought that that was something that was in our realm to do, then we need to do something like that. The other thing that you mentioned there is constitutional. One of the best ways to do a constitutional amendment, and I think the most proper way, is by petition of the people. Because it's just like this voter ID. Once the people get involved in the process, then you know it's something they want, not something that some special interest is trying to push into play. And we get a lot of those kinds of amendments to our Constitution. Do we really want something like that in our Constitution? Would we rather try it out in the statutory realm first and see if it works, see how that works?
What do you mean by statutory realm? Because the only way you could even impose that onto the state, you have to change the Constitution. So how would you do it statutorily?
Well, you could bring a bill that actually presented it. So you could do that.
They have to change the Constitution to bring the bill forward.
Mm-hmm. 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 Remember last cycle when I think it was up in Reno, when the commissioners, they didn't certify the election. I think there were, three of them? And because voters had brought forward evidence and information that all that, so all that went down. And I believe what I read was the next day, Aaron Ford and Cisco came in very threatening, in my opinion, with what they said. Basically, didn't they say you will be arrested if you don't certify the election and all this? Tell us how that went down and what people up north thought about that and what you thought of that.
Well, this is well documented. As you said, you read about it. So anyone can go out there, just Google it, and you can read about it. What happened there was that three of our commissioners said, we're convinced that we need to investigate this election. We believe something happened here. We need to investigate. And we won't certify until that's done. As you said, the Secretary of State, Cisco Aguilar, and the Attorney General, Aaron Ford, came in, told them that they were ministerial, which means rubber stamp this. You have no authority within your office to refuse to certify. You have to sign it. Well, if it needs a signature, how can it be ministerial? That's a really good question. If it needs a signature, then I need to say whether I want to put my name on that or not. And three of them said, no, thank you. And they said, since it's ministerial, you have to. And if you don't, we will sue you.
Sue them or put them in jail? Wasn't there?
Sue you. But the other behind the curtain threat was, we're suing you for malfeasance of office. That can carry with it jail time.
Criminal.
Yes.
Okay.
And so what they were doing was escalating this. One of the commissioners just flatly said, sue me. One of the commissioners said, I will certify under duress. This is lawfare. This is threatening. You have weaponized both of these offices. This is weaponizing against an elected official. And he said, under duress, I will sign this, because he would have had to lawyer up himself. He would have had to hire his own defense, because against malfeasance, then it's on you. The county wouldn't have come in and helped him defend against this kind of a charge. And so he acquiesced, but under duress. And
so whatever happened with all of that? I mean, if they're given the power to certify the election or not, based on what they're getting, what's the point of having that power if they see evidence that they shouldn't certify it?
And that is a good question. And the opposite is true. What if they certify knowing that there was something wrong? That is also a federal offense and has felony charges that can come. So that was a real, as we used to say, a catch-22. There was no way either they were going to get sued by the Attorney General and the Secretary of State, which is eminent because they said, we'll sue you, or they take their chances that the feds won't come in and sue them. When they do their investigation, find out that actually they knew about this, and so it was.
So did
a
everything
problem.
get dropped? No one said anything after that? It just went away?
It just went away. And I will tell you, I've mentioned the 15 county clerks that have authority and responsibility for elections. We have 2 county clerks that have authority and responsibility, but no way to exercise that authority over the election. However, they have to certify as well. So they are called ministerial as well. So when they certify that election, they're in the same boat as our 3 commissioners were in Washoe County, that anytime those 2 clerks just sign off or rubber stamp an election, they do it at their own peril because they're trusting that their registrar has dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's, and knows that this is a legitimate, fair, and honest election. That's what they're certifying, that every vote it counted. And it isn't every significant vote or every vote up to 2% accuracy. No, it's every vote counts. So there is no wiggle room here. That's why I said any inaccuracy is important that we investigate, because we're saying that we have a fair and honest election. Well, that means every vote.
But those races that they were saying, they were Republican races, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder what that response would have been from the AG and Secretary of State had those races been Democrats when they brought that up.
No, I don't think that that's quite accurate.
No? Okay.
No, it wasn't Republican, Democrat. It wasn't a partisan issue. It was an American issue.
What
It was,
races
we
were
don't,
those?
all of them.
Oh, every single one. Okay, I
Mhm.
thought there were particular
No, they were
races.
they were challenging the entire
Okay, gotcha.
election. And honestly, when and there have been some nonpartisan groups that have come into our state and challenged elections precisely at this point. We believe that there are this number of inaccurate votes in your system.
Mm-hmm.
Public Interest Legal Foundation, J. Christian Adams, came in 2023, I think, and said that about our elections.
Mm-hmm.
He said, here's my evidence. And the Clark County clerk did not fight him on this. She said, you're right. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Cleaned it all up. Because he was saying, you have this number of people registered to vote at commercial addresses, brothels, bars, vacant lots.
Yeah.
I mean,
crazy.
he had it all. And it's not that he had numbers. He had people.
Mm-hmm.
This is their name. This is who they are. And this is where they're registered. And it's illegal. And the registrar agreed and cleaned that up. So it's a matter of an American issue. We want a fair election. It's not partisan.
Well, it's amazing that those two people, the Secretary of State and the AG, would not want to have that investigation, and they wouldn't want that transparency and to find out really where is this coming from? Is this valid? Are these, is this legit what they're bringing to us? You would think in their offices. And remember that, voters, next November, when you're voting for the AG and the Secretary of State, because to me, they owe that to the Nevada taxpayers. They owe us that investigation and to find out. So these people, the commissioners, are not put in that situation.
Or the clerks.
Yeah, that's terrible.
There's people that are required to follow the law. I want to say this too. It's only a problem if you're making this a political issue. And that's what has happened to this office. It shouldn't be political. Like I said, it's just patriotic. It's just American. We just want fair and honest election. This is not a partisan office when you get to that point of what we do. We just want it for everyone to be the same. Your vote counts. And when you get, and I have to say that's why there is an attorney in the Secretary of State's office now, is because the other side, and I'm not sure who the other side is. I do know that George Soros in the early 2000s put together the Secretary of State's project, and you can Google that too, and find out that it was his intention to weaponize the Secretary of State's office with attorneys to make sure in the battleground states, which Nevada is one, that we didn't have an American system, we had a partisan system. And that is what has happened. And that's, I think, why we're finally seeing the result of that project. Soros moved on in the, after 2010, he went on to the Attorney General's office to weaponize it. And those two offices work together. So be careful when you're electing these two offices, the Secretary of State and the Attorney General. They work together. If you want fair and honest elections, you have to have an Attorney General that agrees that that's what we need, and that we need someone in this office who will bring the cases forward, because we need enforcement of the law as well. When people break the election law, they should be prosecuted.
Right.
We shouldn't be letting them go with a $5,000 fine and no jail time, which is what Acorn got.
Have they prosecuted anyone in the last
They have
4, 5, 6 years? How many have been prosecuted and actually found guilty, went to jail? Do you know?
In Nevada, 13. Okay. And in fact, go on my website, votesharronangle.com. I'm going to have a newsletter just on that. Who has been prosecuted and why in Nevada? And then what did they get? What was their sentence?
Yeah,
how did that prosecution go? And I will tell you that the following newsletter after that one is going to be about enforcing that law, that we want to be serious about this. If you are a felon committing felonies, then you need to be prosecuted for this. That's one of the things that will bring confidence in our elections, is that if you do this thing, you're going to pay the consequence.
Well, Ms. Angle, we are running out of time.
I know.
But I would like for you, when we close out,
Yes.
you say last word, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about your book.
Okay.
And where people could get it if they want it, and your nomination for Secretary of State, and where they could find you as well on the website.
Thank you so much for that. So here's the advertisement, guys. This is an old book. It is called Right Angle, One Woman's Journey to Reclaim the Constitution. I wrote it in 2011 precisely to answer that question. Did Harry Reid steal the election? And as I said, it's on page 122. This is a book that you can get for a donation at my website only. I do know there's some used copies out there people have turned around and they're selling their copies now, but the new copies and signed copies are with me. And it's a donation of $20 or more to the campaign at votesharronangle.com, votesharronangle.com. You can also go there. My newsletter is free at that site, and you can donate up to $10,000 to my campaign. That's the maximum here in Nevada. And if you're going to do that, hey, send me the check instead. And it's only because I don't want my vendor to get it.
She doesn't want to pay that vendor fee.
That's right. On 10,000, you figure it out. You'd like to be the vendor on the receiving end of that. But truly, go to votesharronangle.com, votesharronangle.com.
Well, Sharron Angle, thank you so much for coming on the program. We
Thank
appreciate
you for having me.
Absolutely. Ms. Phillips, thank you. Folks, that's Sharron Angle. She is a public figure and a candidate for Nevada Secretary of State. We hope that this program was educational and that you learn a lot and you know a little bit more about Ms. Angle. This is Steve Sanson, Stephanie Phillips with Veterans in Politics. Until next time.